Hello, welcome to the very first United Masterclass preview show. Apologies for that. Seems to have been a little bit of feedback there. So, can you hear me, Rob? Sorry, there's some.
I can hear everything. Yeah, I feel good. I can hear everything.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay, no problem at all. So welcome to the very first United Masterclass preview show. It's myself, Haider, and I'm joined by Rob Blanchette, as always. Very poor performance yesterday from Man United, Rob, to be honest with you, and very, very unhappy to see what we saw. How are you feeling?
Well, I feel like everyone else. You know, it was horrible, wasn't it? Nasty. Every bit of it wasn't good. Very, very small plus points. But overall, the same Manchester United that we have seen for a very long time. So before the game, people were saying to me, how do you feel? And I was saying to them, I feel optimistic. And why did I feel optimistic? Because I like the things I'd seen in pre-season. But I was very aware that the first game of the Premier League is always very, very different. And that you should go there with an open mind. So that's what I did, Haider. I went there with an open mind. And I saw exactly what I thought I might see. And that is a not very good Manchester United team. So we're going to go through all that today, break down the tactics like we always do, give you a good review of the Brighton game, kind of explain why Manchester United played as they did and why Brighton won the football match. And also towards the end, we'll talk about 2 or 3 potential new signings. Obviously, that's been breaking news today, Rabiot and Arnautovic. And we'll kind of go through why we believe, spoiler, that they're not the right players to come to Manchester United.
Absolutely. I mean, look, let's start with the match, Rob, to be honest with you. And really disappointing because we saw a lot of good things in pre-season. And we'll start with the formation. Look, a 4-3-3 here. We saw McFred in midfield. Let's break this down. You there, Rob?
I'm there, yeah, completely. You just seem to be freezing at your end. I can see you, mate.
Just pick up, Rob. I'll try and figure this out. Come on.
I can hear you, mate, clearly. So, right, sorry about this, guys. Obviously, Haider's having some tech issues at his end. So, yeah, 4-3-3. What do we say on the masterclass every time we talk about 4-3-3? Manchester United cannot do it. So, no doubt that United were enforced to have to do it with Anthony Martial being injured. Not surprised to see Eriksen in the false role. You know, we saw him kind of do that. He's done it in the past. And Bruno Fernandes playing on the left, we have seen throughout pre-season. So that's been a continuation. That's not something new. We knew that might happen. So United had played a game against Wrexham where they'd kind of trialed the false 9. So when they kind of marched out at it and played this system, it wasn't too much of a surprise. But you can see that when they're 4-2-3-1 and they go to 4-3-3, there's just a complete lack of comfort about it. The team cannot do it. They couldn't do it last season when they were trying to do stuff in this formation. And this season, they're trying to do it a little bit. It's the first game of the season. They've not played it that much. The manager's trusting these players to do it. And what happens? There we go. 4-3-3 against a very organised Brighton team. It completely didn't work. Looking at that front line as well, taking Eriksen out of it, because I think Eriksen played pretty well for his first game at Old Trafford. But Rashford and Sancho, would you say they were useless in the game? Probably. Both had moments where the ball was at their feet, had opportunities in the final third, but really, really kind of struggled to have any kind of impact on the game. And then when you look at the midfield, you know, and this is kind of where Man United lost the game, very much so. It's that midfield 3 there of Bruno, of Fred and McTominay completely failed in terms of moving the ball on. We now got a manager where it's essential that you get the ball at your feet and you can go from A to Z and get it forward. That's where it all collapsed. So we're going to talk more today about those 3 guys in the middle. Because if Manchester United are going to have any success this season, forget your De Jongs and your additions and your new midfielders. These guys have got to be viable options in a Ten Hag squad. I've lost Haider again, so I'll carry on speaking. Sorry about this, guys. It looks like he's having some real tech issues at his end, of some internet issues there. But yeah, so, you know, looking at the starting 11 as well, Luke Shaw came in. I was really surprised when I got into Old Trafford and I saw that. I really did feel that with his illness that he had last week, that he wasn't going to play. And that was the feedback that I'd been given as well, that he'd been really sick, not trained much, but he had a couple of days under his belt. And so he was chosen to come back in. Really thought that Malaysia would start. And then we saw Martinez and Maguire. Now, some of you guys that joined us here for the pre-game show that we did on Twitter Spaces, it's the first time we'd ever done it. Pretty much I picked this team, and that was because we'd heard that Martinez had been practicing with Maguire. So because those two had been together, we'd seen that Varane's still struggling for fitness, and it looked like Ten Hag was favouring those two. So interestingly, I don't think both of those players played particularly badly, Martinez and Maguire. But one of the big problems definitely was Maguire finding it difficult to maybe just shepherd the right-hand side of the pitch sometimes. He came too far left for the second goal. You saw that he kind of follows the player across. Martinez gets dragged in across into the middle. And that was just a mistake. Not the worst mistake in the world, but it cost you a goal. And it ultimately cost you the points. But here we go. We've got the slide up here now for the overall stats for the game. Manchester United's total attempts there, 18. Well, it didn't feel like it was 18. I'll tell you that in the stadium. It really felt a lot less than that. Set pieces, 4. But this is interesting here. Counter-attack, 0. So we don't expect Manchester United to be a pure counter-attacking team under Ten Hag, but we do expect that United will have some counter-attacking facility if you get the ball back through them. So there's no doubt at Manchester United when they did that, when they were trying to get the ball moving, that it just didn't happen. It was mainly on Bruno Fernandes in that first half. I expect him to be the creator in midfield. But when the ball's at McTominay's feet and when the ball's at Fred's feet, you can see that there's complete lack of ability. But come on, this is not something that we don't know. We know that these guys can run. They're not great at passing the ball. So I think the whole game was centered around that midfield three that just didn't work at all. It completely failed in function. We look at Scott McTominay. We've got his figures up here on the screen now. And he's a midfielder who's on the ball a fair bit just because of where he is on the pitch. And he completed 27 passes for the whole game, obviously, before he got pulled. That's not good enough. You know, I believe in the first half from stats I saw straight after the game that he'd given the ball away 8 or 9 times in the first 45 minutes. And that was the story of the match for this midfield. Just completely, just in its function, just what we'd seen in pre-season just wasn't there. And I think the difference was, of course, that they had a full Old Trafford on their back. You know, it went from the opening moments of the game where everything felt good and there was a big noise in Old Trafford and it felt really kind of spectacular, to being 10 or 15 minutes in and it going very quiet because we were seeing stuff that we'd seen under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and under Ralf Rangnick. But overall, I think when you look at McFred, you know, and again, I named them in my team before and said that they were expected to play, and that's what I expected. I think when you look at this was something that Erik Ten Hag needed to see. He absolutely needed to see these guys in a real Premier League match against a real Premier League team. And this is always the problem in pre-season, that all these matches that you play, not one of them ever comes close to a Premier League game, because the Premier League team is always a lot more organised. So now we've got Fred's stats up here on our screen. I was really disappointed with Fred, almost from like the earliest moments. He just, you know what his strengths are, and he tries to play to them, but ultimately he's so loose in his technical work. And as someone said to me in the stadium, you know, it's kind of rare to see in a Brazilian midfielder to be that loose in what they do. So Fred's not the most technical player in the squad. We know this, we understand it. But again, when you look through, he had 64 passes, which not particularly bad. You know, he was on the ball a fair bit. but just not affecting the game in a positive manner. 85 touches, dribbles 1, 2. We look at it, total shots 1, overall rating 6.6. It's just not good enough. So I know the world, every Man United fan wants Frankie de Jong and a new midfielder, and it sounds like we might be getting one, who we'll talk about towards the end of the show. Hopefully Haider will be back at some stage. I don't know what is going on with his tech, but I will carry on regardless. And I think when you look at the midfield three and you go into it and when you look at what Bruno was doing, I think it shows that Bruno Fernandes cannot be in that midfield. He cannot be in that three, because he is a number 10 by craft and by nature. He has got the ability in the box to be a false 9, but the natural place for him to be, when you look at Eriksen being in the team, is to be behind Eriksen. And I think that the one thing that Ten Hag learned in this match is that it's got to be the other way around. Is that it's got to be Bruno at the top end, it's got to be Eriksen deeper. Second half, Eriksen was pretty much playing as a number 6, advancing the ball. It was very strange to see. And I think it showed a real lack of cohesion from Manchester United, that Ten Hag was forced to kind of do things that maybe we hadn't seen in pre-season. It looked relatively new, trying to play to players' strengths. Overall, you look at Bruno's numbers here, 41 passes, 0 long balls, 0 through balls. 0 through balls. We need Bruno Fernandes to be better. We really, really do. And there was no doubt. I think towards the end of the game, we saw that United had a period where they did take over the match. It looked like they were chasing it. They could get a second goal. But Bruno Fernandes, again, just kind of messed it up when he was getting on the ball. He just wasn't at all balanced. Couldn't help his team. He'd fall over and cry to the referee. Lots of kind of boo-hoo-hoo. It was all a little bit of a nightmare. And considering it was his first game, I think, under his new manager and him being one of the marquee players at the football club, it was a complete disaster. So just kind of looking at the defence a little bit more, as I said at the top of the show, Maguire and Martinez, I wasn't too concerned with. There were some bad moments, but overall, I thought their performances were okay. First time they've played together in that format. But the fullbacks were really poor. So Luke Shaw, as we said, has been ill. I really don't understand why Luke Shaw was in the team, considering how sick he was. Hopefully, we can see Haider coming back in here. He's seems to be in and out, so not quite sure what's going on there. But I do want to talk about Joga Dalot, because Dalot, let's say to the end of last season, lots of people were like, well, we don't like Aaron Wan-Bissaka anymore, so Dalot is your flying fullback. He's the guy that you got to go with. And I can see why Ralph Rangnick picked him, especially over Aaron, but I still have the same concerns about him. And to tell you the truth, when I watched the game at Old Trafford, he was probably the player that I was the most upset by. So I think with the second goal, you see that he's trying to be productive by pressing high up the pitch. He's pressing a Brighton player in their corner flag, 90 yards away from our goal. And they nick the ball through, and the ball goes, and it goes up the left side. And it actually goes from left to right, and then it ends up in the back of the net on the other side, back again as it comes across. Fred falls asleep, and it's in the net. And Joga Dalot, even at the end of the play, still running back into the box. And I think when he got to the halfway line, he just kind of stopped and slowed down, probably tired because it's early in the season, but not good enough. And that's the bottom line. So he had 2 shots on target there. I think, again, when he's in that area, he's obviously better than the likes of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but so far short of what Manchester United need on the right-hand side as a fullback. I often say, don't know, on the masterclass, that fullback is now the most important position on the pitch. And what do I mean by that? They're the guys that really drive your attack, but they're also the energy guys. They're the ones who get back, help the centre-backs, and find a way. So I'm sorry that we seem to be here like 14 minutes into the show, guys, and all you've listened to is me talking about tactics, even though we know exactly what this show is about. Not quite sure what is happening with Haider, but we will see. I'm just check if he's actually messaged me, got back in. So apologies about this. So let's see. So he's having problems with StreamYard, so I think he's trying to fix that. But we'll try and carry on with this segment anyway. So I do think that it was really important that these things that we know as Manchester United fans, because we see the team all the time, I'm not saying Erik Ten Hag hasn't watched all of this on videos, but he's had to watch it in the flesh. Now, Erik stands directly opposite me at Old Trafford, and I just watched him a fair bit. And, you know, he was coaching, he was doing what you'd expect him to do. But there was a little bit of helplessness about him. And I think a realization of how deep some of these bad habits are. And, you know, by Lord, these are bad habits that we know have been there for a long time. There was a big kind of lashback at the end of the season where people talked about Ralf Rangnick and the Ralf Rangnick style as a coach, and that he wasn't good enough. And, you know, United had picked this really bad coach and these players didn't have someone to support them. And I pushed against that. I said, I don't believe it's the coach. I think he's got great tactics. I think he's got a great tactical mind. It's just that players are not good enough. That's a big problem. So are we saying now that Erik Ten Hag isn't good enough? Are we saying that Erik Ten Hag hasn't got the right tactics and motivation to get this team going? No. I think what we're actually seeing is that these Man United players, and a whole chunk of them, are trying. You know, I don't think it's dishonesty. I don't think anyone out there is stealing a wage and not trying in that first game, but they're so short on the quality of what they should be doing. And the combination of quality and fighting spirit just doesn't exist at Manchester United. It's completely different to, say, Liverpool. I was watching the game and afterwards I was kind of crunching numbers. And I was thinking, with Liverpool, you always see that even if they make mistakes at the back, their back four just work non-stop and their midfield three just work non-stop. There's always 7 players there chasing, harrying, closing down angles. I think what you kind of saw with Man United is that they just get to about 80% of the job, and that last 20% doesn't exist. So that's something for Ten Hag to kind of work with. I see Haider has popped back up here. I don't know. It says his mic is on mute.
Yeah, Rob,
are you back with us, Haider?
To all the listeners, can you hear me clearly there?
I can hear you clearly. Yep.
Looks
Everyone
like
can hear
there's
you.
a lot of feedback when I was speaking via my laptop, so I am on my phone. So apologies, guys. It's not the way we wanted to start, but I'm sure Rob held the fort very well there. I was following, and Rob, to be honest with you, something I did want to pick up on, I'm sure you covered it though, is I just thought Brighton played smartly, and something we did say in the preview, and you did say this, and I agree with this, is that they were going to be better drilled than us. Let's be honest, they've been under Potter for 3 years or so that wasn't a surprise. But what Brighton did is they did the basics. You know, they played long into the channel. Danny Welbeck using his pace, holding the ball up, and in terms of when we had the ball, they were pressing us quite aggressively. Fred, I know you've covered Fred here, but Fred struggled in terms of it's not in his game to turn with the ball and to carry the ball forward. Frankie de Jong, I don't know if anyone saw that clip, he did that very, very well. And they exposed him there, and he's quite one-footed. So United lost the ball many, many times when Fred was doing that, and that put a lot of pressure on the back four and on the goalkeeper, and De Gea as well. A couple of wayward passes. For me, Rob, a lot of the problems were the same, and the players forgot almost what they've been doing in preseason and reverted to type. Bruno Fernandes giving the ball away. McTominay was 67% ball possession, is very, very poor. And I think Ten Hag, something we saw last season, didn't we, with Rangnick? They couldn't press, they couldn't do the Gegen pressing. I think Ten Hag will find out very, very quickly that some of these players can't do what he wants them to do, and they'll have to be shipped out the club, or they'll have to sit on the bench.
Yeah, but this is the problem, isn't it? Is that, you know, you can't polish this up when it's just like not there. So one of the things that I said is that you need to just let these players fail. This is what the manager needs to see. He needs to go, you know, preseason is one thing, but proper competitive matches are something else. And this is why when I preach patience and talk about it all the time, it's more about allowing the manager to see what we know. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. So, like, it's not blind optimism that we're going to suddenly see everyone be fantastic and great. What it means is the manager needs to see who he can rely on. And this was the issue for Rangnick. Rangnick came to the club, got 10 minutes out of them where they played well. We all felt good against Crystal Palace after 20 minutes. And that was the end of it. And then the manager was like, oh, my God, what's going on here? So this is why Rangnick didn't have time to fix those things. Now, Ten Hag will have time to fix it. But you know, we'll talk a little bit more about his transfer targets towards the end of the show. But overall, I think he needed to see this performance. We didn't need to see it because we know it, but he did. He needed to feel that irie in that stadium. He needed to hear some of the booing. I don't condone booing at all, but he needed to actually see it and feel it and taste it, because we're in a very funny place at Manchester United where we have a broken relationship with our owners. We know that that is what it is. And of course, there's always this hunger for new signings. And the reason why people want to see new players, and we say that new players are essential, is because of what happened against Brighton. So Brighton are a good team who are organised. Danny Welbeck ran that channel and they beat us. But they beat us because we were bad, not because they were great. They were okay and they played well. They did what they had to do. But both goals were very much preventable in terms of Manchester United's shape. And the second goal was a complete collapse in terms of knowing what your job is. You know, that's why we got Delo up on the screen. He completely, burnt his bridge in that moment where he went and pushed so high up the field that he then cut the blood supply off to the defence. And Brighton saw it, got through it, switched it again, and it's a goal. And that's on Diogo Dalot in that moment, but it's also on the whole team.
I think the concern is, Rob, I do agree with that. Look, it's going to take time to implement principles. The intensity of the Premier League is important to note as well. Although Martinez had a decent game, I think, early on, he was just adjusting to that in pre-season. It wasn't really a true reflection of what a Premier League game would be like in terms of intensity and pace. I think one of the biggest things, the biggest concern is, I don't think fans have, maybe concerns with Ten Hag's abilities. It's clear that he has a vision, he has a style of play. He knows what players he needs. Obviously he is going for what he knows. The scouting department feels a little bit broken. They've sacked all the scouts. I think that's a concern. The biggest concern is, Rob, that, we're sitting here. Maybe he needed to see that, but we as fans knew really what was coming. We knew with these sets of players that, especially when you looked at that midfield, that he wasn't going to be able to play the way he wanted to. And I think that got exposed. I think the biggest concern is, will those right type of players come in and will Ten Hag be given the time? Because if he goes and loses 3 on the bounce, then suddenly he's under pressure, and he shouldn't be under pressure. We said this when he signed. When we did that show, the Ten Hag announcement show, we said that ultimately at the end of the day, United could even finish 6th, for example, lower, but Ten Hag needs time. He needs backing. It just feels like the club have had a lot of time to make some moves. They've obviously brought 3 players in. They haven't addressed the midfield. They've chased Frankie de Jong for the whole summer. He might come, he might not. But it just feels, again, haphazard. It feels scattergun. And I think that's the most disappointing thing, because you've got a manager with a genuine identity, a genuine idea of how he wants to play. He's a great coach. He's a tactician. But it's concerning, I think. And I think fans, the reaction after the game, obviously the loss. I'll disagree with you. We spoke about this off air. You said it's because of the loss. I think it's more to do with the fact that Arnautovic and Rabiot were 2 players that were mentioned. We're going to talk about them tactically and some of the attributes. We're not just going to slag them off, are we, Rob? But I think that's the concern. They're not the type of players. We talk about profile. We talk about, personality that we want in the squad. Well, Rabiot comes with baggage with his mother or his agent, and then you've also got Arnautovic. We'll talk a little bit later, but we won't obviously make that the whole reason why he shouldn't sign. But it's pretty serious stuff in terms of some of the racism and other aspects.
Yeah, look, I think the whole point of this is with Manchester United as a football club and where we've been for a year. I totally understand that if Man United win a game, people are happy, and Man United lose a game, people are sad. So, of course, the first instance is the loss. That's where people go, we expected to see something better, but we didn't, and that's the truth. I totally get why people are sad about that. But I think also there seems to be a lack of preparation mentally from a lot of Man United fans about how long this is going to take. Because I've spent 6 months talking about this individual subject, about time. What does time mean when you give a manager time? I even see in some of our comments here, people saying, how long will he get? Well, that's a kind of abstract question. We do not really know. It depends how bad it gets or how quickly he can fix it. But I don't believe that anyone fixes this. Like you just said there, Ten Hag is a good coach. Yeah, he is. He's a really good coach. Tactically, he's proven it at Ajax. But Manchester United is like a different universe to Ajax. And Erik Ten Hag, where he looks up into the air and sees a blue sky at Ajax, there's a completely different colour set of clouds above his head. This is Manchester United. It's a damaged football club. So he's going to have to fix, as I described it on Twitter yesterday, 1 million problems, because there is 1 million problems at Man United. It's not 1 or 2 things. United fans would want you to believe it was Paul Pogba or Jesse Lingard or whoever or whatever they don't like that day. But it's not that. It's so many factors, and that morphs into football performances. So we saw that against Brighton, that this United team just simply isn't good enough. It's not talented enough. It doesn't work hard enough. It doesn't know how to press consistently. It doesn't have guts. It doesn't have courage. And all of those things mean that you will lose games in the Premier League.
And it means, Rob, to be honest, it means you need to go and get the right players in. So what can Ten Hag do then?
It
with
does.
What he's got, he can't. And that's the fear, I think. That's the fear that the fan base are feeling at the minute. That what can he do if you're not going to get him the players he wants? Because it's going to be a long season otherwise.
If you don't get him the players he does, like he wants, and he doesn't get them, and Man United play badly, do you know what happens, Haider?
What happens?
He gets sacked. That's what happens. That's exactly how it works at every football club. It doesn't matter what he actually gets and doesn't get in terms of the bigger picture. If Man United say, well, we back this manager, or we've agreed with this manager, this is how it is, and 12 months on, we came 10th, Erik Ten Hag does not get another season. So United fans might be patient and say, yeah, I'm patient. I want to see it play out properly. But that's not how it works. That's not reality. So I don't want that to be Erik's future at United. And United do need to get on their bike and start signing players. But as Erik Ten Hag said a few days ago, we're not going to sign any old players. We're going to sign the players I want, the players that I need. And here we are, about to talk about two players in a minute that not any one of us wants at Manchester United. So that is an issue. That's a bigger issue. So this is how it's going to unfold. So United fans need to kind of, again, I just think, reset and kind of wait and see where we are. And unfortunately, of course, every football fan wants their opinion. All football fans, what drives this business in this industry, no problem with that. But this is not a fix that you're going to see 2 weeks at the end after pre-season. Just not. It's never going to be that. And I'm not surprised that Brighton beat us. I think even in our pre-game show that we said on Twitter Spaces, I said it would be 2-1 to one of the two teams. I thought it'd be pretty close. I felt United would probably edge it, that they would be the winners. But I just felt that Brighton are a much more organised unit. And that means they could come to United and beat us.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, Rob, at the end of the day, we will talk about Rabiot. We will talk about Arnautovic. Before we do that, guys, thank you so much for listening. And obviously, Rob was manning the ship. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. So many of you in the chat today. And it's really great to have the Man United Masterclass back. Remember, this will be on every single Monday night MC. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and put those notifications on. So much great content coming this season. The thing is, though, Rob, ultimately, at the end of the day, before we go into these players, so it's a good comment here from Harry saying, no football club in the world goes into a transfer window without their scouting network and their chief scouts. They had time to replace them, and they didn't. This in itself is a sackable offence for Murto and Arnold. Where does the line stop in terms of you've got to give the manager every player he wants? And then when does the football hierarchy, and ours isn't doing this sufficiently, and the jury's still out for me, but when do they step in and say, Erik, no, we understand you want this player. We don't think it's the right fit for this, and this reason. This is the player you should go for, and this is where the scouting department has to, offer these players and offer suggestions and have a list. Like, where does the manager's desires and giving them what they want stop? And then this is when the footballing hierarchy steps in. Because when I look at these two players, if Erik Ten Hag does want them, I've said, give him who he wants. But I think there's a line, isn't there? Give him Frankie de Jong, wait for Frankie de Jong. Wait for Sesko. Now, obviously, he's gone now. But Rabiot? Or who's on 1 year left on his contract, 18 million fee, sorry. You could get him for free next year. Or Arnautovic, 33 years old, been playing in China for 3 years. Where does it stop? When does football hierarchy have to step in? And that's my concern, is that, right, this summer, fine, get who Ten Hag wants. But they should be, the football director and the scouts should be the ones, devising the plan. It shouldn't just be on the manager, because if Ten Hag leaves tomorrow, then it's a completely different philosophy and manager that comes in. And we've seen this the last 12 years or so since Sir Alex has gone.
Yeah, I think pretty much every Man United fan in the last several months has said the same thing, and that is give the project to a football person and a manager to manage it. So that's what they've done. But we can't say Haider like 5 minutes into a new season, because we don't like what he's going to do next. The board should step in. Surely, like, we can't say, they say to him, yeah, do what you think to win Eric, and we will support that. But if we don't like the players that you pick, then we won't buy them. Isn't that just what they did with Mourinho? So where does it begin and end? So there's no doubt that universally the thought of signing Rabiot or Arnautovic has been met with derision with Manchester United fans on Twitter. But let's be honest, Twitter is an extreme platform of all sorts of nonsense. But of course, I agree with people. Totally agree with them. They're not the profile of two players that I think we need at Manchester United. I will say that until the end of this little moment here with the transfer window closing in 24 days. That's when you kind of reassess it. But it shows that Manchester United, I think, in terms of Ten Hag, he might be panicking. I said, I think on our preview show, Erik Ten Hag had a really strong support system at Ajax, a proper club, you know, with scouts and with philosophy and all of those things built in. We don't have that. We've asked a guy to come to a football club and invent it. So we cannot expect that on game one, this football club looks good, does it? So this is why it's such a slow process. So yes, Man United could have gone out and got targets earlier. You can always say that. That's always on the table. You can get everything done early. That still doesn't mean you win. We got Jadon Sancho done early, didn't we, last year? And we got kind of Varane somewhere in the middle and Ronaldo to the end. And everyone said Man United won the transfer window and Man United came sixth. So it doesn't always work like that. It's not kind of perfect circle. It doesn't just go round and meet. I just think that when you look at this, you know, you could say John Murtough's inexperienced. You could say that Richard Arnold is inexperienced. And you could say that as good a coach as he is, Erik Ten Hag, that he is also inexperienced at building a football club. So it's not going to be perfect. So I think when you look at these two signings, I don't think they're anywhere near the standard. They're both good players in their own rights in what they can do. And I think Erik Ten Hag might be looking at the squad now and going, I just need someone now because we haven't got what we need. And Frankie's still messing me around. And Barcelona is a basket case football club. And he might go to Chelsea because he likes London. So what do I do? Well, I've agreed to deal. We've agreed to deal with Juventus for Rabiot. Potentially we'll agree a deal now for Arnautovic. And we can get those two in. And at least means I've got a striker and another midfielder just to help me try and have these first early weeks of the season so it's not a disaster. Well, no, I would rather that kids were played and they were blooded. And if you lose football matches, you can say it was the kids and it's going to take some more time. But there's a pressure, Haider. And I think that's the other side of it is that fans will disagree with what the manager decides to do in this instance with these two players. But ultimately, it's his job on the line. It's his neck. So like I said, 12 months' time, United come 10th. Bye, Eric. There won't be any time. There won't be extra of like, let's give him an extra year. Ralf Rangnick played, 4 months, 5 months, came as the god of gegenpressing, the guy that invented it. And 4 months, 5 months later, Man United fans absolutely sharpening the knives. And
well,
so
Rob,
did the football club.
Everything he said was correct. Maybe as a coach, he was a letdown, but he was exactly the sort of man you wanted around.
I think the players let him down. I don't think the coach. There's no problem with the coaching. I don't think he let the players let him down. They would not press because they wouldn't press because he hasn't got the authority to say it. So I don't think he was a letdown at all. You know, we keep hearing this. I've heard it from very prominent journalists from Manchester United. You know, have got big names off the back of the club. And they were like, it was Rangnick's fault. It was not Rangnick's fault. It's the guys that we saw play the other day, Haider.
Yeah, it's mad.
They're rubbish. They're rubbish. And it's going to take time to bring in better players and to get rid of the rubbish. When you throw the trash out, you've got to tie the bag up. You've got to open the lid and you've got to put it away. And that takes time. You can't do it in a day. So fingers crossed, 25, 24, 23, 22 days of the window to go. And you get to that point. Man United don't just panic and buy bad footballers to go with bad footballers, because what's that going to mean? It means you're going to lose more football matches.
Rob, let's move on to the last segment of the show and let's talk about Rabiot. So on the screen here, we have got the FBref statistics from some of Rabiot's performances last season, and this is him compared to the other players in his position across Europe. Now, I do want to say this, Rob, that, we were talking off air. So tell the listeners, it's not going to be him or Frankie, is it? That's what we've heard. It's going to be Rabiot, and then they still want Frankie de Jong.
Yes, I've done some digging on this today just to kind of look and try to find out more about Manchester United's position on this, what they're thinking and how it's actually working. Why are they looking at Rabiot? Well, Rabiot is a player that Erik Ten Hag wants in terms of some of the price brackets that they've been operating around and shopping in. A player who's played for good football clubs, who's got a bit of a strange reputation. So like when he was younger, people looked at him as like the next big thing, that he could be a really top player, didn't really materialize for him. And at Juventus, I'd say he's a little bit up and down, but he's certainly no superstar, is he? He's not the midfielder that kind of gets you going. But yes, they want to obviously carry on the Frankie de Jong side of it, which is so boring that we're all bored to tears of it. And it's just horrible. It's just like going round and round. But they're looking at strengthening other parts of the midfield. So it's kind of what Eriksen was. Eriksen was brought to the club to be the other parts, help away with number 10 and creativity and one thing or another. And Rabiot is going to be coming in to do that kind of more functional stuff that he does and has done in the past pretty well. But again, if you're looking to build towards a team that can be top 4 in the Premier League, but you're looking at a guy who absolutely wouldn't be of any interest to the other teams in that conversation, you need to think twice. So this could be, I think this is the real first test for Erik Ten Hag's reputation at Man United, because if he chooses these two guys and really goes for it, says, yep, these two are going to help me and it's better than what I've got, and say we get 10 games into the season, Haider, and these guys play and they're awful, and 10 games in, United have lost 5 games, his neck's on the block.
Oh,
and
fans
will be saying, fans will be saying, well, why, rather than buying Rabiot, and you didn't get De Jong because De Jong messed us around, why did you not just blood Zidane Iqbal? Why did you not play Donny van der Beek more? Why did you not give Charlie Savage a chance? Why did you not play Hannibal? So we've got players at our club. There's this mystique that Man United don't have midfielders, but we do. But you now need to give some of them a little bit of an opportunity. I'd much prefer any one of those 4 getting more minutes than signing this guy on your screen.
Yeah, Iqbal especially, when you're looking at what Fred struggles to do, both Fred and McTominay, I think, McTominay strong, well, probably more comfortable playing as one of the 8s. His positional awareness is not great when he plays as a 6. Fred's probably the same, gets your energy, he can go forward. He's not great at turning with the ball. When you look at what Iqbal was doing in pre-season, I mean, he was fantastic. Great spatial awareness. He was able to turn with the ball and start the attacks, and that's the key. And when I have a look at Rabiot's statistics here up on the screen, I mean, look, when we look at passes attempted, he's in 29th percentile. Pass completion, 56th percentile. When you have a look at what McTominay was doing yesterday and Fred, 67% and 80%, it's not much better. Where you'll see him look okay, Rob, in terms of we're talking about Rabiot here, is his progressive carries. He's in the 74th percentile. Touches in attacking area as well. Progressive passes received. Dribbles completed as well. He's not too bad in 62nd percentile. He's pretty good defensively, though. If you're having a look here, 83rd percentile in terms of pressures, tackles as well, 85th percentile, blocks, 88th percentile. That's quite surprising. So, in the defensive side of the game, he could be a decent addition. When you're having a look at it as well, though, Rob, ultimately, where do you think he's going to benefit playing if he's going to come into Manchester United side? Do you think he's going to slot in that number 6 position and just screen? Something I do want to add, though, is to add a bit of context. I'm not really high on Rabiot. To be honest with you, I did say today, if Rabiot came in, I'd be fine with it as long as Frankie de Jong was also joining us, someone of that caliber. If it's just him, and I just think it's a crazy transfer when you're thinking about trying to get rid of players on big wages, and trying to whittle down that wage bill and bring in young, hungry players. You're bringing in someone that's not wanted by Juventus. The thing about Juventus, though, Rob, I know off air we had this little conversation. I think the statistics here might not necessarily reflect his abilities, just because Allegri is a conservative, pragmatic manager. They don't play an expansive, progressive type of football. They're not on the front foot. So, when you look at the passes attempted and the pass completion, that could be a reason. But it's very difficult to get excited about here, I'll be honest with you. It's just a signing which feels like it's a panic buy stopgap, and Man United have been doing this consistently. And the Glazers have been doing this consistently. And I feel like we're almost at we're on the edge here, because the fans were so excited for Erik Ten Hag. You can see he's got quality. You can see he's got a vision. You can see he has a clear style of play. You can see he's got footballing principles he wants to implement. And the Glazers are going to let him down. And I think it's the first time that we've seen a fan base behind a manager almost wholly. You know, like there's not any. I don't see as many factions and all this rubbish that we see. I don't think Rabiot really turns the needle. Now, if Jong comes in as well, yes, I think that's decent business. I'm underwhelmed, if I'm honest with you.
It's completely underwhelming. Completely underwhelming. But, here's the but. If we want Erik Ten Hag to have full control of Manchester United and these are the players he wants, what do we do? It's difficult. So I think this is the whole thing about it, about, we want a guy to do the job. We want a football person to do it. But when he makes the decisions we don't like, we just are not going to back it. That's difficult. So I look at Rabiot. He's not a bad player. Like you said, you read out his stats there. He's not the worst player in the world, but he's not the player that absolutely bona fide guarantees your top four. Because this is where you're going. You're having to build a squad that is of that caliber, a proper Champions League squad that eventually you can keep adding the pieces to slowly but surely, and you're getting a kind of influx of quality. One of the things you said there, you talked about Juventus and the style with Allegri and all of that. I'm not too fussed on all of that because it's more about is what you're bringing in better than what you've got. And the kind of stats say to us overall, no, he might be a better number 6. He might well actually play the 4-3-3 better than McFred, because I think that's an important part. I think we've seen that now is creeping towards 4-3-3. If Ronaldo goes, that might be what Man United are left with, that's going to be the primary formation. So Erik Ten Hag needs to find ways to facilitate that, doesn't he? He might look at what he's got and go, no, I don't fancy these players. We want youth, but he doesn't, because it's actually his neck on the block, not yours, not mine. It's his. So he has to make that choice at the end of the day. He's going to make a choice, Haider, that he believes will win Man United matches and win him matches and give him a good position to start this project, because we haven't really even started. We were talking like we're well into it. We're not. We are on day one. We're still on day one of the project, however long it runs. This is still day one, about midday on day one. We're not even got to the evening of day one yet. So I don't want these players. You don't want these players. I don't think Man United fans want these players. But if Erik Ten Hag wants them and desires them and feels that they are going to help build him a much more robust squad, then unfortunately, what is Murto and what is Arnold supposed to do when they've told this guy you have full control of transfers?
Yeah, look, it's a difficult I think it's a difficult conversation, and it's one we'll probably have as the season goes on, won't we? Because, let's say this goes really well, we'll turn around and say, look, Erik's a genius. He knew what he was doing. If this goes badly, then, I think the issue for me is, you chase Frankie de Jong, and if we just end up with Rabiot, that's the frustration. What I do want to actually ask, I don't know if you covered this a little bit earlier, so apologies if you have. And guys, as always, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm seeing loads of you joining us now as well, so make sure you do that, please. Help hit that algorithm for us, and let's get the United Masterclass to the top of all the United content. But when I have a look at it, Rob, on the weekend we saw Christian Eriksen start further forward but drop back deep, and as soon as he got on the ball, United started to control the game. I mean, he's an absolutely wonderful footballer. For me, he was United's best player on the pitch. So that shows to me that if United can get someone in that deeper position who has, the ability to dictate the tempo of the play, he's got great vision, he calms things down, takes the pace out of the game like Paul Scholes used to do or Carrick used to do, speed it up again. Doesn't have to be a destroyer. We hear this all the time. We don't need the destroyer. We need someone who can pass the ball. We've got 2 destroyers in midfield who can't pass the ball. We don't need a destroyer. We need someone who's a footballer. What we did, when we saw Eriksen there. I mean, I was impressed, but that gives me hope that if Ten Hag can get that player in that can do that, then United are going to be a completely different side, because there is attacking talent there, but you can't build, from back to front if it just breaks down in midfield.
Yes, exactly. And this is, I think, exactly how Erik Ten Hag is thinking, because he's not going to buy players. Like he said this the other day about players, we're going to buy the right players. Well, there's no doubt that these 2 targets that we're talking about now are nowhere near the kind of level of targets that we were talking about, say, 3 months ago when we were starting the cycle of the transfer window. And they're going to have to prove it. If they come to the football club, then they're going to get minutes on the football pitch, and then they have to prove that they help improve this team. But I think the fear factor for a lot of this is that, I think you said it a few minutes ago about the Glazers and what they've done. The Glazers' recruitment policy over 10 years has been to spend 1.4 billion and get nowhere. And now what they decided was that we won't do it anymore. We'll just put the money up and these people who work for us can do it now. Now, that's okay. That's not a problem. But there's a lack of balance. I'm just going to tell a little anecdote here, which I think is really important because I've used it a few times recently with Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp's first year. And we know that Jurgen Klopp's first year was highly underwhelming at Liverpool, came 8th, not particularly good. But there was one instance in the transfer market where Klopp wanted to bring in 2 or 3 certain players forwards at the time, and Liverpool overruled him very early on, even though he was given transfer control. And they said, we've got deals in place for 2 players coming through, which called Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane. That's a football club. It's what football clubs do. So Man United are not in that position to even have that conversation with Erik Ten Hag because things were so bad and run so badly that Erik has just got carte blanche. You know, it's kind of on him now. And that's why I said...
But Rob, just interrupt you, sorry, quickly. But they also went and got Michael Edwards, who was fantastic. John Murtough doesn't have the same pedigree. This is the problem. United didn't go and get Luis Campos. He's doing a phenomenal job at PSG. You know, some of the players he's brought in are such smart signings. You know, Renato Sanchez, 15 million. Vitinha is a good signing. Hugo Ekitike, who's playing up front. You know, like these are smart signings. You don't have to go and break the bank. You know, there's Caicedo and Alvarez available for 23 million combined. You know, you don't need to. You know, you don't need to be an amazing director of football to see that these are good. These are good deals, and it doesn't matter who the manager comes in. They're smart deals, and if they don't work, they're low risk, potentially high reward. But this is what I'm trying to say is that, you know, like ultimately at the end of the day, Liverpool had a quality director of football and a quality hierarchy for Klopp to lean on. I don't look at that current hierarchy and think the same thing.
No, look, I do understand why you're saying that. And again, it's great to say that about Liverpool in retrospect, years later, isn't it? That they were great and that's what he had. Well, that wasn't necessarily the opinion at that time. So Liverpool built that reputation and built it as they went through with their signings, and they've obviously been hugely successful. But, you know, this is the whole kind of muppetry of it, Haider, is that if tomorrow Murtough walks through the door for playing with Frankie de Jong on his arm, he's a genius. None of these things are true either way. So I don't think we can judge John Murtough today. We can't judge Arnold today. You know, there's a little bit of a joke on it. You know, like when Arnold ended up at the pub with those fans, and a lot of it was, oh, look, he said there's all this to spend and all this. That's really great. And well, no, because you have to wait down the line. We can't judge any of it today. We can't. So yes, I would like to see a better support function at Manchester United for the manager. But what they've said is to Erik Ten Hag is that he has to build that. They want Erik to control the scouting. They want him to go in and say, right, we're going to put these 20 scouts in place and they'll work directly with me and I will hire the middleman and we'll work it like that. That's their plan. Now, I don't think that's a bad plan. Not on day one. I think it's not a great plan if 12 months time we're saying, who are our scouts? Sorry, who have you actually bought? You've not bought anyone. Oh, here we are going around in circles again. So again, as I said, it's very easy for us to go in retrospect. Yeah, they were great 6 years ago and that's why it worked. I don't believe how that was. Klopp went into Liverpool and the first thing he said at Liverpool, and I know this comes directly from some of the people that work there, that he said, I want full control. And they said, yes. And when it came to certain things, they gave him that control and it was a soft transition. That's what they did. Man United's been a hard transition. Here's a basket case football club that is failing. Please, 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 please fix it on day one. Please. And it doesn't work like that. Football is not like that. It's organic. So this kind of forced way of what fans expect, of what people think will happen, just will not happen. It will take a lot of time. Whether he gets the right players in Haider, and we say, was he supported or was he not? You know, if he wants Rabiot, and Rabiot fails, it's on Erik Ten Hag, isn't it? But we cannot make that choice until much later down the line, that judgment. And this is the whole story of every football club and every football manager, is that we can only, once the results are in, when we see results and performances, then we can start to say whether it worked or didn't work. We might be saying in 6 months that he was the worst Manchester United manager of all time. 6 months' time, he's gone. We've got another interim and we're doing this all over again. Hopefully not, but that is on the table.
Oh, that's grim. We're going to move on. But before we do that, is Rabiot joining, yes or no, in your opinion?
Yes, I think he is. Yeah, I think he is, because again, this is not just about budget saving. Again, this is the weird thing. People say, "Oh, it's £15 million Glazonomics." Well, Man United are trying to conduct an £80 million deal for Frankie De Jong. On the other hand, so like 2 players for 100 million would not be bad business, would it? But you'd have to get the 80 million as well. So you've got to get that player, haven't you? But yeah, I do think that Rabiot is done. I think pretty much everything is agreed, except a few kind of bits and bobs on personal terms. But the thing is, he wants to come to England. I think for him, he's been around the block a little bit. He sees it as a fresh start, and there's opportunity at Man United, isn't there? There's going to be chances to play and to look good. Fingers crossed to us, even though we don't like him, he proves us all 100% wrong.
My final word on Rabiot, Rob, is that 3 years ago or so, when he was on a free transfer, leaving PSG, I would have snapped your hand off for him. I really did like him at that time. His career has stalled. I know we've seen players like Kulusevski, obviously go to Juve and struggle as well. I'm not saying Rabiot is anywhere near on Kulusevski's level, but there is always that case of sometimes players who need change, and maybe what he needs is to play regularly, maybe out of I suppose the limelight at Man United. I mean, I don't think there'll be that much pressure on him. I don't think there's high expectations on him, to be honest. So
I don't know. I don't know if there's anywhere worse to play than our football club. I really don't.
Yeah,
like Juventus is going to look like a song and dance. Like Juventus are a massive football club, huge football club in Italy, of course. But Manchester United are up there, top 3 clubs in the world. That's what they are, and that's another thing, Haider. I think that's why the performance was so bad against Brighton, is that they wilted. These players they can't handle the pressure of wearing that badge on their shirt, on their chest there. That one there. It's so difficult. So I think Rabiot might come in. I don't think Rabiot will think, "Oh, here we go. This is easy." I think he'll hear those boos straight away on day one and wonder what's going on at this football club.
Yeah, look, I still think De Jong will sign. I know there's a comment here from Harry saying that we all deep down know that he isn't. I still think that he probably will sign, but that's just my opinion. I've got a feeling you don't chase a player. I think United would have moved on by now. They might have looked at different alternatives. And look, they might still, Rob, go to the end of the window, you get Rabiot. They might look towards Neves, Tielemans, whatever it is, and just pay the money. But
I just hope De Jong didn't watch the Brighton game.
Well, this is what I was thinking. The biggest fear for me, Rob, is we play Brighton. I believe we've got Brentford next. Then it's Liverpool, isn't it? We could be 3 losses on the bounce, and then we're an unattractive proposition. Or even more unattractive proposition.
Jealous. Let's move on, Rob. I think that's the thing, isn't it, to look at.
Exactly. Well, let's move on now to the last segment of the show, and it is Marco Arnautovic. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot been said about some of the unsavory things that we've seen in terms of racist comments. We've seen, we've seen the sexist comments that he used to make to the women's team at West Ham when he used to play there. Not the character you want at the squad. When we talk about character, the character sort of analyzing that Ten Hag and the board now want to do when players coming in. This goes against everything, and so does the Rabiot thing. We know that Rabiot's mum is an absolute nightmare to deal with. Just type in, I think her name's Veronica. I think just type her in, guys, if you haven't seen, into Google, and she's a tough piece of work. So when we're having a look at Arnautovic as well, taking away the fact that he's 33 years old, he's just spent 3 years in China, Rob. This again is another stopgap. I just think about the strikers. Let's just think about it from Sir Alex. The last striker signing he made was Robin van Persie. Look, gave us our last title. Amazing season. Absolutely loved it. One of my favorite seasons from a player at Man United. But you have to think about it. 2 seasons later, he'd left. So when you're having a look at it, he is. We were going for players aging. Then you go Falcao. Then you go Zlatan. Then you go Cavani. Now you're looking at you went for Ronaldo. Now you're looking at Arnautovic. It just does not make sense. Why don't you invest properly in the number 9 and buy someone with longevity that you can develop? Why are we going from stopgap to stopgap? Because in a year or two's time, when they're on big wages as well, and they get injured inevitably because as you get older, wear and tear, we're in the same position again. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm not too sure, to be honest. Why we're looking at him. We will go through the stats in a minute, but from a moral perspective as well, I don't want to play like this at the club.
No, I understand that. And I think from a moral perspective, there's always issues with certain players and whatnot. And this player has got them, by the yard, no doubt about it. But we're a tactical show, so we're going to talk tactics. This is what we're talking about. Why does Erik Ten Hag want this player? Well, this player played obviously under Steve McLaren at 20. And obviously, Erik Ten Hag was part of
12
that.
years ago, Rob.
Was that part of that organization? That was 12 years ago. But this is why they want him, Haider. It's what we're trying to explain. So they know him. This is why they see him, his character as a footballer of what they want. Now, we can talk about moral characteristics, but you know what? It's not a lot of morals in football in general anyway. Certainly at most football clubs, it's just what it is. So I don't want this player at the football club. Why do I not want him? I don't want him because I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he was good enough when he was at Stoke. I don't think he was good enough when he was at West Ham. I don't think he's good enough. Just the bottom dollar. You know, you scored 14 goals in Serie A last year for Bologna. Well done. I don't think you're good enough. You know, you might as well go, you know, this is like the next Igalo. So, you know, you needed Igalo at that time. You went and did it. And this is kind of where Man United are now. So I also don't want to look too far back. Like you were reeling off strikers there. We can go back to York and Cole. It just does not matter. What matters is today, tomorrow, and the future. I want Man United to find a striker that can do all the things that Cristiano Ronaldo cannot. So Cristiano Ronaldo can do one thing. We know it. He scores goals. He's a goal scorer. We need that in a striker. But you also need someone that allows you to play 4-3-3 and does the press and does all those things. Isn't Arnautovic that kind of player as well? Well, I think he's a bit of a fighter. He's a battler, but he's a big lad. He's got skill. He's got touch. You know, he's got all of those things. He does score goals. He has scored goals in the Premier League in the past. But is he perfect for what you want now? Well, absolutely not perfect. What are the options? The options is that you look within and you take one of your kids and you put them in that role and you say, we're going to build that way. Or you completely bite the bullet. And
who's ready for that, Rob?
Well, look, Charlie McNeil's not ready.
No,
he's not ready. But if that's what you've got, Haider, and he's shown that he's a finisher and that he can be molded and he can do stuff, then you say, we're not going to spend 8 million and a 3-year contract on someone like Arnautovic. That's what you say. You know, you have to make tough decisions. But like I said to you, as fans, it's very easy for us to go, well, it's not our job, is it? It's Ten Hag's job. But we'll say this, that's what we think. Ten Hag isn't thinking that. He's thinking, I knew this guy from 12 years ago. And like you said, we shouldn't be going for stopgaps. No, of course we shouldn't. But you've got to then go and find your Haaland. You know, if you wanted Sesko, like we'll talk a little bit about Sesko now as well. Like we know Sesko's not coming to Manchester United. We know that he's going to stay in the Red Bull system. And I said a few weeks ago, that was the most likely outcome, that he will stay with Red Bull because Red Bull are not going to flog someone for 20 million when Man United are knocking on the door. They're not going to do it. They're going to say, well, give us 55 million or we're just going to send him to Leipzig because there we'll build him up again and we'll sell him for 100 million in a few years' time. That's proper business. That's how that works. But you still need to find a way to do what you got to do. So Marcus Rashford was highly disappointing against Brighton, another one of those players that failed on the day. He played through the middle a little bit, and then they switched to 4-3-3, and they tried to kind of mix and match it, and it was very kind of hectic, and it was like, well, what are you actually trying to do? Eriksen playing up there, Bruno playing deeper, none of it worked. So I can see that this manager is going, right, what are my options? Right, Arnautovic will give me a little bit more muscle at the top end of the pitch. Oh, yeah, he's not a very nice bloke, but I don't care about that. He might score me 15 goals this year. That's how they think. That's how managers think. So this is why we've been linked with him. First bid of £8 million has been rejected. He wants a much bigger contract for Manchester United, but is supposedly very, very keen to come back to the Premier League in this scenario. Why wouldn't he be? And Man United are going to have to pay a little bit more money. Do I think he's worth 15 million? No. What would I do with that 15 million? I'd go knock on Barcelona's door and say, I'll pay Frankie de Jong's wages. That's what I would do, because then at least you're getting a piece that helps. You're getting a piece that helps you, and then you're going to say to Charlie McNeil, "You're playing up front, mate, this year," and you live with it. And it's not perfect, but you live with it because it's the right way. So this is what I'm a little bit worried about in terms of, like, I totally trust Ten Hag, and I know why he wants a striker, and I know why he wants this striker. It just doesn't. It feels like not going to work. It's not going to work because he's not good enough for our football club. He might become a cult hero. I can see that. Do you know what I mean? A little bit like Igalo was for 5 minutes. But cult heroes is not what you need. You need proper footballers.
Cult heroes are not going to get you back into, let's just
No.
say, the top 4 and beyond, Rob.
So if you only get one signing, out of all of this, go and get De Jong, pay everything, do whatever you got to do, get him. I don't care what it takes. I get why Man United don't want to pay those wages. But if you're going to pay 15 million for Arnautovic and then 12 million or 15 million for Rabiot, bin one of them, take the one that you really want, which is Rabiot in this case, and use that wage to go and get Frankie de Jong. And then at least you can say to Frankie de Jong, you're our little demigod, you're our little Jesus. We're going to play you in midfield every week, and we're going to work around the issues that we have in this football club. Then you see Martial might come back, have a full run of form, and be a good number 9 in front of Frankie de Jong. Wouldn't that be something joyous?
I completely agree with that. 100% I agree. That 50 million, go and give it to de Jong. We're in no position to be haggling anymore, Rob. We need him in there. I would go for Rabiot and de Jong.
Yeah. And this is why Barcelona have put the brakes on it all along, because Barcelona knew we'd get here. Barcelona knew we'd get to the point with 20 days to go, and Man United were going to have to make a choice. And that's why they did this from the very, very first stanza. They did it early, and United fans went, oh, this is terrible. And we were like, yeah, it's terrible. This is how business works. Now Barcelona going, well, you want the player. We don't want the player. Tell you what, that 80 million, let's do that again. But please pay his wages off and you can have the player. What are Man United going to say in 7 days, Haider? Yeah, they're going to say, all right, let's go. Let's do this. I'll
do
give
it
you
now.
the money. And Barcelona are laughing on the other side of their faces. That's just how it is. It's just football.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a comment here, Rob Depay as well. I did read somewhere as well that Barcelona are looking to, basically release him from his contract. If you're going to go and get someone, look, and I'm not the biggest of Memphis Depay, but he has developed his game. He's a number 9 now. He would be able to press, in terms
He's
of...
better than Arnautovic.
He's better than Arnautovic, 100%. Yeah. And I think, he'd have a point to prove coming back. That's more long-term thinking. I think that's the biggest issue here is that, it's the short-termism of it that just doesn't make sense. And as you said, Rob, we've got his stats here, obviously. Let's have a go through some of his stats. Passes attempted, he's 87th percentile. So he's got good underlying statistics. He is playing, he's playing in Bologna. In terms of his pressures as well, 57th percentile, interception 70th. You look at goals as well. Non-penalty goals, 68th percentile. He scored 14 goals for Bologna, who aren't exactly, a top side in Serie A. So he's had a good season, but it's not the signing Man United need to make to close that gap. Look at Depay, that's a good example. But look, I'm still pretty, and I'm not a big Martial fan. Whoever's listened to Masterclass for the last year and a half or so knows I'm not the biggest Martial fan. But from what I saw in pre-season, I would happily go for him. And then obviously we still got Ronaldo. It's a tough one, Rob, to be honest with you. The comment here saying, blood Garnacho in. I agree with that idea, to be honest with you. And then you push Rashford to play number 9 a little bit more. That's another option as well. I didn't really like seeing Eriksen as a false 9. It didn't really work for me. He's much better when you have him deeper on the ball. He can dictate play, and he, like I said earlier, he's a really good footballer. So that's what I'd rather see. And then Bruno Fernandes needs to step up. I know you've gone on a segment already. He needs to step up because you've doubled your wages now. You haven't performed really until since the first season, really. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're one of the leaders in the squad. You need to perform. Oh, otherwise, Rob, Ten Hag will have to look for a solution with him, and maybe he has to go out the club. And I love Bruno Fernandes, but it's not good enough from what we're seeing from him the last season or so.
Yeah, look, people say I've got a problem with Ronaldo, and I really haven't. I just think it's a very simple situation with Cristiano. But I'm starting to have a problem with Bruno Fernandes. I felt it last year, and I feel it now. A little anecdote. I did say it earlier on in the game, earlier on in the show, but it was in the game towards the end part of the match, and I think everyone will remember it. But he got fouled with about 8 minutes to go, and it was just as United were in the ascendancy. Just started to play some better football, passing it around. Eriksen was deeper, kind of pulling the strings. Bruno got fouled, laid down on the floor, rolled there for a little bit. Referee came over, chat to the referee, and it went from being really excited and the ground being up to 4 minutes of Bruno talking to the referee. It's narcissism.
Petulant.
It's petulance. It's narcissism. It's like it's me. That's exactly what we don't need at United. So I'm not saying replace Bruno or anything like that, but I am agreeing with what you're saying. Is that in this moment, Bruno Fernandes should be going, do you know what? I'm a great finisher of the ball, boss. I'll play up top. Let's have Christian behind me, and I can be the striker. But I just kind of feel that there's a deference there of responsibility. As much as Bruno Fernandes talks a really good talk, like when he does his pressers and he talks on the mic, he's always really determined. United, we need to be better. We need to be, and he's like that. Great. Yeah, well done, Bruno. And he goes on the pitch and he's petulant. He's like a 5-year-old. So I don't want that. And I think this manager will get that out of him eventually. I don't think it's as dramatic as he'll have to leave the football club or anything like that. But he is one of the highest paid players in the team. He needs to do more, and we need leaders. And I think that's, for me, that's the end of this show, Haider. And this is the bit, like I did say it on Twitter, but I'll say it here again. Man United lack leaders. They still lack leaders. Now, you might have a brand new coach at the very, very top, but the players on the pitch have no leadership capability at all. Cristiano came on. We were better, weren't we, with Cristiano on? He's not a leader. Bruno is not a leader. Harry Maguire gets killed every week because he wears the armband. He's not the biggest leader. Martinez might be leader. But you know what? I look for the expressive players, Haider, the leaders there to be the ones. I'm not interested in Harry Maguire. He'll either play well and play or play badly, get dropped, and Varane will come in. It will be simple. But Bruno won't get dropped. Ronaldo, if he stays at the club, probably won't get dropped. You know, these guys have to step up. Marcus Rashford is almost like guaranteed a spot just because of the way the squad is. He needs to play better. So all of these guys who are the leaders of the dressing room, the leaders of the football club, they need to be better. But that's what Man United need to be buying now in the transfer market. This is why they're looking at Arnautovic, because supposedly he's a bit of a leader in the dressing room. I certainly don't want him at the club. But this is what Ten Hag is looking for, someone with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder who maybe will operate up there and do that kind of blood, sweat and tears job. He isn't penalty box operator, but I would rather go with Bruno Fernandes as a false nine.
And Rob, that's a wrap, really. Look, very disappointing performance. Just not the way you wanted to start the season with the new manager. Unfortunately, you know, we didn't get to see what we've seen in pre-season. We saw a lot of the same problems, deficiencies in this team. I have a lot of faith in Ten Hag. I really do. You know, I was obviously higher on Pochettino, but I'm delighted with what I've seen so far. I think he's handled media really well. Like I keep on saying, that clear vision, clear style of play. It's really, really important. But ultimately, at the end of the day, unless these quality additions come in, he's not a magician, is he? Ultimately, at the end of the day, he is a football coach.
And he'll be judged on results, Haider. One game, one loss, one bad performance. So it's 100% loss record today. So like I said, we're at the earliest part of his tenure, and that's cool because there will be time. I'm like you. I do agree. I do trust him. But will we be saying that in 10 games' time if it's not working?
I don't trust the board, Rob.
Let's see. You know, let's see what happens. Like I said, 20 odd days of the window to go. You know, he might pull a rabbit out the hat and bring in 3 or 4 players, and we go, wow, they're really good players. You know, he might go find those next Christian Eriksen's on free transfers. There might be those players out there, but it's not going to wow us. But if we're wowed by the football when we win games, that's really all that matters at that stage. But there's going to be more defeats, and I think United fans have to swallow that. Do you remember the Rangnick masterclass we did when he joined? And the one thing we ended on was that Rangnick is not a miracle worker. He's great at what he does, but this team is not very good, and we're probably going to lose more games with Rangnick in charge. And people went, what? And it happened. So I feel like that now after seeing that first game. I'm not looking forward to playing Brentford or Liverpool in the next week or two. I think they are both hard games and horrible games for us stylistically. We'll do preview shows on both those games, of course, and masterclasses. But overall, it feels a bit grim. And this manager, you know, he's got to find a torch and a light from somewhere because it's a very, very dark place at the moment.
Absolutely. And guys, as always, give us a follow on @Haider_Rubbani. Give Rob a follow on @Rob_B. And give us a follow on the newly branded United Masterclass. That's @ManUnitedMC. We'll be back every single Monday for the show. It'll be Monday Man United Masterclasses, which is going to be really, really exciting. We've got the preview shows as well. So make sure you follow us on Twitter because we'll be doing Twitter Spaces. And it's an opportunity for you guys to get involved as well, to give your say and to really interact. And let's help grow this channel and bring this content to as many people as possible. Keep the faith. I can't believe I'm saying that the first game into the season, sorry. And we'll see you next time.